You got into the safety business because you wanted to protect people, but somewhere along the way, the job started controlling your time, your schedule, your priorities, even your income potential. What if the expertise you've built over the years in the field can give you something more? More freedom, more control, more ownership of your future. I'm Sheldon Primus, the author of 7 Steps to Starting a Profitable Safety Consulting Business and the host of the Safety Consultant Podcast, with more than 350 episodes helping safety professionals become consultants and grow their career. Consulting changed my life. In fact, I'm a full-time RVer, and one consulting contract paid for my home I live in today. Now, I help safety professionals build their own consulting practice through bi-weekly coaching calls, accountability, and personal guidance. But this program isn't for everyone. Start with the Consultant Readiness Audit at sheldon.coach.
What if everything we thought we knew about safety was just interference? From the host of the Rated R Safety Show and the founder of Safety FM comes the complete Signal Transmission Trilogy, now available in one powerful edition. Safety, in my opinion, the book that started the conversation. Safety Mutation, where the boundaries of culture, systems, and belief begin to break. And now, Safety Transmission, the final piece of the signal. For the first time, all 3 books are together in one volume. The Signal Transmission Trilogy, Complete Edition. This isn't just about compliance. It's about consciousness. It's about decoding the way we think, lead, and live, inside and outside the system. Whether you've been following the signal since the beginning or you're just now tuning in, this is the version to own. Search Signal Trilogy on Amazon or visit safetyfm.com to get your copy now.
Hi, this is Jim from Safety Wars. Before we start the program, I want to make sure everyone understands that we often talk about OSHA and EPA citations, along with some other regulatory actions from other agencies, legal cases, and criminal activity. Everyone is innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. Proposed fines are exactly that, and they are often litigated, reduced, or vacated. We use available public records, news accounts, and press releases. We cannot warranty or guarantee the details of any of the stories we share, since we are not directly involved with these stories, at least not most of the time. Enjoy the show.
This show is brought to you by Safety FM.
From the border of liberty and prosperity and the highway to the north, this is Safety Wars for Thursday, March 16th, 2022. I'm sorry, where did that come from? March 16, 2023. Well, if you are a business owner in the United States, make sure you get in your tax returns or your extensions by midnight tonight. I'm sorry, you should have had them in by midnight yesterday. So hopefully you did get something into the IRS. A lot going on out here today. So, I'm going to go right into, are you being manipulated? So, there's been a lot of reports today about Poland and sending MiG-29 fighter jets to Ukraine. So, my understanding is that these fighter jets are like Soviet surplus from the 1980s. They're like one generation before whatever Ukraine's using now, or something like that, or they're the old stuff, or it's one generation back from what Poland is using now. So these are like the old fighter planes that the Ukrainians probably could train on and fly with a minimal amount of training and conversion. So A lot of news reports are saying Poland is sending over all these fighter jets to Ukraine. Blah, 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 and they're giving the impression that there are huge numbers of these fighter jets going over. So, I did a little bit of research. Turns out they're making all this hullabaloo over 4 fighter jets. I guess on principle, it's a major issue on principle, because now it's an escalation in this where we have not been where this stuff is being sent directly from a NATO country to Ukraine. I don't know if it's right. Blah, blah, blah. So here it is. Poland on I mean, they're, whether it's guns or if it's money or if it's food or humanitarian aid or any other equipment. I mean, I don't know. I don't understand what the how much of an escalation this is, and other than to have a talking point. So here's the story from CNN. Poland on Thursday pledged to would send 4 MiG-29 fighter jets to Ukraine, the first NATO member to do so in a significant move in Kiev's battle to resist Russia's onslaught. President Andrzej Duda, he's the president of Poland, said the planes from about a dozen that it had inherited from the former German Democratic Republic will be handed over in the coming days after being serviced. When it comes to this from Duda being quoted by CNN, when it comes to the MiG-29 aircraft, which are still operating in the defense of Polish airspace, a decision has been taken at the highest levels. We can say confidently that we are sending MiGs to Ukraine. And that's pretty much it. So I don't know where this is going to go here. Some of the other stuff going on. We're going to go right to the OSHA news releases for today. Again, I look at this stuff right. I look at this stuff right up front here. With this is the first time I'm seeing this. So you're getting the raw reaction every time here. No, I could be like one of those news readers out there, and and I'm not as polished as Jay Allen with his news coverage. But you're getting the raw reaction from me. So this is from El Paso, Texas. Federal investigators found an oil and gas company employee suffered a fatal exposure to hydrogen sulfide, that's H2S, while working near a sump pit in September 2022. The U.S. Department of Labor's OSHA issued citations to a company for 6 serious safety and health violations after the agency found the production waste facility exposed employees to serious chemical hazards. The company is located outside of El Paso. At the time, so let's see what they got them here for. So let me look up real quick. Let's get the SDS for hydrogen sulfide. So you got a hydrogen sulfide SDS here. All right, now we're prepared. I am looking at the citation right in front of me here. Citation 1, item 1, serious. This is a general industry. I'm sorry, I'm starting to lose it up since 4:30, guys. General duty clause violation. So this OSHA Act of 1970 states, right, the employer did not furnish employment in a place of employment which were free of recognized hazards that were causing or likely to cause death or serious physical harm to employees, and that employees were exposed to inhalation/suffocation hazards. On or about blah, 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 at the such and such facility, oil and gas waste treatment and disposal facility, employees are exposed to inhalation and suffocation hazard while working in areas with potential hydrogen sulfide and using H2S monitors which were not properly calibrated and or bump tested. So this is probably something that you folks want to note. Does OSHA have standards, right, regulatory standards on calibration? Not that I'm aware of, but they do have some standards for equipment calibration that we talked about the other day with confined space entries. So since this is a recognized standard, this is a recognized hazard, hydrogen sulfide, they're able to go and have an actual, they're actually able to cite you under this standard. So among other methods, one feasible and acceptable method to correct this hazard condition would be to follow the employer's document. And they have an employer. I'm not going to mention what it is because it'll give it away, the name of the employer. Monitoring, testing, and calibration states. Procedures. 1. Procedure. Employees will be trained in the proper procedures for bump tests and calibrating monitors they will use. 2. Frequency. Monitors must be tested and calibrated at least every 30 days when in use. I don't do that. If I'm going to be in charge of air sampling or air monitoring, everything gets calibrated before every use and after every use. What way I do. 3, documentation, testing, calibration of the sensor will be evidenced using a sticker system. So this is along the lines of, they mentioned it. They could have gotten them easily on a willful violation here of the, right? I don't, for this, right? When it was just serious because they knew that they were supposed to be doing this. And they got them, a penalty of almost $11,000. It's $10,938. Citation 1, Item 2, type of violation series. Except as provided elsewhere in this section, this is in 1910.28, the employer did not ensure that each employee working on a walking and working surface with an unprotected side or edge that is 4 feet or more above a lower level was protected from falling by one or more of the systems described in 29 CFR 1910.28 B1I. So there was a fall hazard. That was $6,250. Citation Item 3A. And this is a 1910-132. This is, the employer did not assess the workplace to determine if hazards were present or were likely to be present, which necessitated the use of PPE. So there's no assessment. So that was $10,938. So I do this every January, where I recommend all my clients do a hazard assessment. Why? Not a lot going on in January, especially in the construction industry. And this is the other thing with a job hazard analysis, right? This is what covers you with it. Why? No, people ask all the time, why are we doing the JHA? Why are we doing JSA, TH, AHA, whatever we want to call them? This is the reason why. 1910-132 D1, and there is also another regulation in the construction regulation that states that you have to do communicate hazards and do assessments if you're the competent person, right? And that's what that document takes care of, because that just costs them a proposed $10,938. And citation citation item 3B, another serious one. They got $0 on this one. The employer did not verify through a written certification the identity of the workplace evaluated, the person certifying that the evaluation had been performed, and the date the hazard was done. So that was another one. And we have one more. 1910-1200, and the employees were not provided effective information on and training on hazardous chemicals in their work area at the time of their initial assignment, or whatever new hazard that the employees had not been previously trained about was introduced into their work area. So there was no HOS training as referenced in their corporate safety plan, no HAZCOM training, and hazardous chemical training was not done in a language comprehensive to the employee, which means to tell me that essentially the employer was not did it in English, and they probably had another language there. That's what I'm looking at here. So this is what we're going to do right off the bat is I'm going to copy this and send it on over because I'm going to forget. Send it right on over to one of my clients who's dealing with an H2S hazard. Now, so recently Sheldon Primus, he offered a class on it, and I believe he's a trainer on H2S. Now, when I was on my second honeymoon in Alaska, my wife had a job. What I call my second honeymoon. It was our second honeymoon. It was 4 weeks after our first honeymoon. My wife was doing a event in Alaska, and it was the ConocoPhillips Anchorage Mayor's Marathon. I believe that's the name of it. So I had gone up there, and there was a training class from the North Slope of Alaska up there. I said, well, let me go and take it because that way I have something to do during the day, and then at night we go out, right, and do second honeymoon kind of stuff. So what ended up happening was a couple of things. My wife needed a photographer, and I have a nice SLR camera, and she says, can you go and take pictures of what's going on around here? Right. And she gave me that. And I went to, that's the story I'll tell in part 2 of this trip because it's a funny story. Very funny. So I went to this class, and they actually had an H2S segment for the North Slope of Alaska training for ConocoPhillips and BP people. And when I was there, at least, I got to go to the class. It was cool to find out some trivia. I learned a lot on H2S, hydrogen sulfide, for that. And we'll talk about that in a minute here. But at the end of the class, they had in the back of the room tables set up, or I think it was down the hallway. They had tables set up. So if you attended the class, you had your resume in hand, right? You were able to apply for a job at BP or ConocoPhillips at the time, right then and there, right on the spot, because let's face it, not a lot of people want to go up to Alaska to the Arctic Circle, but when you figure out, that it's pretty good pay and there's some other benefits for being up there. Now, some jobs you're going to find out in life, especially if you're a new worker or a younger worker inexperienced, is networking opportunities. So a lot of people use the Alaska experience on the oil fields to get their foot in the door for the energy sector, specifically oil and gas. They call that the upstream versus the downstream, what you get at your pump, right? Put in your car. Upstream, midstream, downstream. Retail is downstream. Upstream is exploration. Midstream is oil refining and storage and distribution. So anyway, very, very good class. But this is what happened. This is why you don't be nasty to people. So my wife volunteers me. I get voluntold to be a photographer for her event. And I had a bicycle that I rented, really nice bicycle. I probably should have bought it used. Burley. Now, Burley does make bicycles, but if you're over 6 foot tall, this was like a nice bike. If you're ever looking for a used bike, nice frame that fits big people, Burley is the way to go. Anyway, I'm going around town, and I get to tour the town a couple of times. I got to know Anchorage pretty good, and I see this guy with a ConocoPhillips shirt, and it says, right, Race Marshal or something like that. I go up to him and I say, sir, I'm one of the photographers for my wife's organization. And I said, I was sent to go out and take pictures from this vantage point. Do you have any recommendations as to where I should take pictures? And my wife had printed me out a nice little ID that said, photographer for blah, 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 blah. And he said, oh, yeah, sir, you want to go down to such and such a place, and that's where you want to go. That's blah, blah, blah. Good. Okay. And I said, by the way, I see you have a ConocoPhillips shirt on. Do you work for ConocoPhillips? He said, yeah, as a matter of fact, yeah, I'm up here. I volunteer for this race every year for ConocoPhillips. It's a good race, good thing. We raise a lot of money for like the charities involved, like your wife's charity. And I said, okay, great. I said, yeah, I do a lot of work at the Bayway Refinery back east in New Jersey. He says, oh, yeah, what do you do? I said, well, I work for one of the contractors as a corporate safety director there. And he says, wow, I'm a certified industrial hygienist. I'm going to be there doing a safety audit later this year in like November. I said, really? Can I have your card? And we exchange cards. He says, yeah. Well, he says, I'm going to be auditing you. I said, wow, great. Well, it's nice to meet you. What are you going to be looking for? I said, don't worry about it. It's just normal stuff, routine stuff. As long as you got the routine stuff going, you're not going to have a problem, Jimmy. I said, okay, thanks. See you then. So we part ways. Anyway, I get back to New Jersey, and I have somebody at the refinery, right? And he says, and he was not very nice. He was one of our contract people. And he says to me, you, Posel, and he's slamming his hand, you have better be ready for your audit in November. And this is like 5 months away. I said, okay. They're going to be watching you, and they're going to be auditing you, and you better have your Guvno together. He didn't say Guvno. And he's yelling and screaming. I said, oh, really? And he notices I'm not really getting upset. I said, okay. I said, and I take out my wallet. I have this gentleman's card in there. And I said, is so-and-so coming to visit it? He's like the head of the audit thing. Yeah. He says, yeah. And I said, well, I met him when I was in Alaska, and we talked about everything else, what they were looking for. And I don't think we have anything to worry about. But no, thanks for the heads up on that. You want to see a guy turn white as snow? You see this guy. Funny. So it's Safety Wars. You're going to hear a story. So what's the moral of the story? Don't act that way. Don't yell. Don't scream. Right? And he made himself look like an idiot and everything. So, getting back to hydrogen sulfide. So H2S, right, has a lot of different hazards to it. It's flammable. It's compressed gas, usually, except in this case, it sounds like it was not compressed. But in like calibration gases, it's a compressed gas, acutely poisonous, and also has long-term hazards. So the hazard statements, and it's also an environmental hazard. Danger, signal word danger. Hazard statements, extremely flammable gas. Contains gas under pressure. Well, this one I got for compressed gas. Fatal if inhaled. May cause respiratory irritation. Very toxic to aquatic life. And extended exposure to gas reduces the ability to smell sulfides. May form explosive mixtures with the air. So the permissible exposure limit for hydrogen sulfide, right, has several of them. So the ACGIH sets the limit at 1 ppm TLV at scale of 5 parts per million for 15 minutes. NIOSH sets a ceiling limit of 10 parts per million for 10 minutes. OSHA PEL from 1989 is 10 parts per million. And the Z table, the current one, right? So you have the PEL from the vacated standards in 1989, then you had the Z table level at 20 parts per million ceiling, right? And anyway, that's what we're looking at here with hydrogen sulfide. The lower explosive limit is 4.3%, which if you've been following along, that's 43,000 parts per million, and the upper explosive limit at 450,000 parts per million, or 45%. Now, the vapor density is 1.19, so it's slightly heavier than air. Now, with this stuff, all right, some other stuff goes on when you're dealing with hydrogen sulfide. So with H2S, you have a lot of stuff going on. So let's say that you're working in, there's two sources. So there's a couple of different things you have to realize here with hydrogen sulfide. There's, I got some other information here. Give me a second here, bear with me. So something you have to, it's what we call an olfactory inhibitor with that. So what happens is when you start to get close to its IDLH, which is 100 parts per million, but it happens at lower levels, your nose goes blind to recognizing it as a hazard because it's ubiquitous and you don't smell it after a while. So what happens is it's not a very appropriate chemical to use a air purifying respirator with. If you're going to be exposed to hydrogen sulfide, how do we protect you? There's a hydrogen sulfide monitoring. You can either have a lapel type air sampling device, or you can have a regular 4-gas monitor, which has a hydrogen sulfide monitor on this. Now, with the hydrogen sulfide monitor, when it goes off, you evacuate the area. There are some chemicals. I'm sorry, some respiratory respirators out there that are meant for only escape level only. Now, if you're up in a tower, it's hard in a place hard to get out of. That's all fine and dandy to have that type of respirator, air purifying for escape measures only. But I tell you what, if we're going to hit a exposure limit, IDLH, that alarm going off, it's probably going to be quicker that you get the hell out of there rather than stick around with a respirator. Pardon my French, but people are messing around with respirators, putting them on. Well, just leave the area. Now, if you're going to have that an exposure to H2S, right, and it's going to be on there all the time, hydrogen sulfide, you're probably going to want to go for, if you can't do an engineering control, is some type of ventilation. If you can't do a ventilation, remember, these are often in Class 1, Division 1 environments. That may not always be feasible. To have that type of equipment out there is probably going to be in supplied air. Now, what happens is with hydrogen sulfide, it has a very low threshold, of odor threshold, has 0.02 ppm. Remember, the PEL, right, for this exposure limits are right up there, right, with So the TLV is TWA, TLV, 1 part per million, NIOSH REL, ceiling limit of 10 parts per million. Now for 10 minutes, and the OSHA PEL, the vacated was 10 ppms or 10 ppm for 8 hours. That if they're going to cite you, that's going to be under the general duty clause. That's usually where all of the exposure limits are set, is something at that level, right? At that level is 10 parts per million. All the meters are set at that. So, going on. And if I'm looking at NewJersey.gov information on this, and it says 10 parts per million for anything over 10 parts per million. It's respirator use, supplied air, and anything 100 parts per million is the IDLH level. Hydrogen sulfide, it's very common poisoning out there and everything else. So the odor threshold is very low. If you're going to start to get higher levels, right? So we're talking 10 parts per million or more, you're going to have a problem. And what happens is when you hit 100 parts per million. Not only is it IDLH, it's also no smell, between 700 and 1400. It's has great negative effects to your body, right? Pulmonary effects. And at 1400 and 2800, you have a paralysis in the respiratory center and breathing stops. From what I understand, most of the time when people die from this, it's from you have a lot of something in the 1400 to 2800 range. Now, something else to know, when you're calibrating your air monitoring equipment with any type of gas, but especially a flammable type of gas like hydrogen sulfide, where it can be flammable, you have a valve on your calibration gas. It's my policy. I put the gas on the cradle or use the valve, right? If you're old school, you use the valve. New school, you have a whole calibration cradle where everything is automated and computerized and recorded by data logger, right? So when I'm doing it, I use the H2S and I take the valve off, or I take it out of the cradle every time, because it happened to me in my younger days where somebody left the valve on unknowingly, and hydrogen sulfide leaked out in an office. Happened on a Friday afternoon. How do you think that place was smelling on Monday morning? Big issue. Depressurize the whole cylinder. That could cause a problem. Displacement of oxygen, or flammable, or IDLH situation. So what's the moral of this story? Visit Sheldon Primus. Anything, I don't have his information in front of me, the Safety Consultant podcast. He does teach H2S, right? Hydrogen sulfide class. Again, who should be getting this? My opinion, just my opinion, anybody working with it should be getting some type of training with it. So, for example, right now, I'm doing work at a sewage treatment plant. I'm doing safety audits there. Everybody is educated in hydrogen sulfide. Oil refining industry, and hydrogen sulfide is in the crude oil, right? And it's a byproduct of the process. Some of the pipes and oil refinery, 90% hydrogen sulfide, way above the upper explosive limit. But what happens when they get released into the atmosphere, let's say through a leak? Now you're in a flammable range. You can have a problem. All that stuff going on. It's no joke here with hydrogen sulfide. Nothing to be messed with. So here we have a federal investigation orders church to pay back wages and reinstate employee fired for raising concerns about rodents and insects in child care center. This is in Dallas. After a nutrition specialist employed at a certain facility raised concerns about rodents, spiders, and other insects in its cafeteria, kitchen, and other areas, their employer acted far from charitable and terminated the worker in August of 2021. After an investigation by OSHA, the employee's allegation that the facility operator of the child care center wrongfully fired them, the agency has ordered the employer to reinstate the nutrition specialist and pay them back wages, interest, and compensatory damages. OSHA's whistleblower program in Dallas determined that the facility violated the Food Safety Modernization Act when it illegally terminated the employee in retaliation for exercising their protected rights to report unsafe and unhealthy conditions. The facility's actions, quote, toward the employee are unacceptable and deeply concerning, said OSHA Regional Administrator Eric S. Harbin. And I tell people never to call me when I'm on the air. Okay. Okay. The existence of rodents and insects in food preparation and serving area poses a health hazard. The employee had the legal right to express apprehensions about the unhygienic surroundings and should not have been fired for doing so. All right, so if we recall, and they have the findings here on the press release and heavily redacted. Okay, so this has a little bit more information. The respondent hired the complainant as a nutrition specialist starting in May 2021. She was making $560 a week for a 40-hour week without benefits and overtime. On or about May 24th, the complainant began seeing insects and spiders inside the child care facility, primarily in the kitchen, the cafeteria, and front foyer area. As the complainant believed these conditions could compromise food safety, the complainant reported his concerns about the infestation to the daycare center director. Then the air conditioning unit for the daycare stopped working, and the complainant reported the issue to so-and-so, as redacted, who advised it would be fixed. However, the air condition did not function until early July. As such, temperatures were very high in the kitchen and cafeteria during the hot Texas summer and jeopardized food safety and health. Despite positive feedback for his work and no disciplinary action, shortly after the complainant began reporting food safety issues, the complainant was issued 2 incident/observation letters. First, on June 16th, after the complainant had raised concerns about the insects and spiders and non-functioning air conditioning, so-and-so issued an incident or observation letter to the complainant for a dress code violation, alleging that the length of the complainant's pants he wore was above the knee. The complainant denied wearing shorts, saying that he wore pants that extended below the knee. Most notably, at the time the incident observation letter was issued, you gotta love this, the respondent did not have a written dress code policy for male employees. At the time, the board and someone and the board secretary responded, and respondent admitted to the complaint that no such dress code policy existed. Second, on June 28th, someone observed the complainant laying on the couch in the director's office and issued an incident observation letter. While on July 6th, while the air conditioning unit was being repaired, complainant discovered an infestation of rats, roaches, the presence of rat guano in the kitchen. The following day, the complainant reported the insect, the vermin infestation, to somebody, who in turn reported to blank to schedule the exterminations. The complainant was aware that other staff had seen rats, and he therefore began to clean and sanitize the cooking area multiple times per day to ensure safe food preparation for the staff and children. So-and-so resigned on August 24th. On October 26th, the complainant discovered another rat infestation. The complainant took pictures to document the infestation, then called somebody and reported the presence of rats, spiders, and insects and rat guano in the kitchen and cafeteria. Goes on and on and on. So basically, how much is this going to have? The respondent shall pay complainant back pay plus interest in the amount of $11,000. And as of March 11th, and shall pay the complainant an additional back pay rate at the blah, 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 minus interim earnings until the respondent makes complainant a bona fide offer of reinstatement. So, what's the moral of the story here? Training is what it comes down to. That's what it is. It's training. Are your managers, do they know about whistleblowing complaints and how to handle this stuff? Or is it, hey, we're going to fire people? Well, you're going to fire people, good chance anybody with a computer is going to be able to look this stuff up. Federal investigators find operating and training deficiencies contributed to fatal refinery explosion that claimed 2 workers' lives. A federal investigation into 2 workers' fatal burns at a Ohio facility crude oil unit has found its operator violated the U.S. DOL's process safety regulations for highly hazardous materials. So they do not have... Is there an actual... Nope. They did not include Oh, here it is. They cited the company for a whole bunch of stuff here. So what do we got? Citation 1. Item 1. 1910-119. The employer did not document that equipment complies with recognized and generally accepted good engineering practices. Sounds a little bit subjective to me, but regulation says you got to have it. Going on, and it describes that. What was the fine? $15,625. I'm sorry. That was not it. Hold on. No, that's what it is. $15,625. Citation 1, item 2, type of violation serious. Process hazard analysis did not identify, evaluate, and address the control of hazards involved. Another $15,625. Next one, did not address the process hazard analysis, did not address engineering or administrative controls applicable to the hazards and their interrelationships. That was another $15,625. Citation 1, item 4. Another process safety management one, $15,625. Next one, another process safety management. They just whacked them 10 times, it must be, on this. $15,625. Written operating procedures. How does this relate to human organizational performance? Here you're relying on heroic acts. You're relying on one or two people knowing how to operate that thing. Does that mean that that's a safe? Is that a safe way of running? Absolutely not, is the answer. There are 5 principles of HOP. There are no heroic things. Everyone's got to know what's going on. You're building capacity. The facilities that I visited, that's not what happens. You have 1 or 2 employees that know what's going on, and God forbid something happens when they're not there. Right? And next one, another process safety management, written procedures that provide clear instructions for emergency shutdown, including the conditions under which emergency shutdown is required. Another $15,000. Here's another, citation 1, item 8, if you're keeping track. Written operating procedures, again, for what you're doing. Another $15,600. I find this hard to believe. This is a major oil company that they had no written procedures here. Another one, job hazard analysis and safe work practices, such as lockout, tagout, confined space entry, opening process equipment or piping, and control over the entrance into a facility. Right, your accountability, that they $0 on that one, but it's labeled as a serious thing. Citation 1, item 9. Did not develop written operating procedures that provided clear instructions for safely conducting activities. $15,625. Citation 1, item 10. Each employee not given process safety management training. Ooh, $15,625. And the last one, the process hazard analysis did not address human factors. Employer, so here's the description. The company failed to address human factors in the process hazard analysis to ensure that delays in screen loading on the South A board and the control room were corrected to allow for timely operator response in the event of an upset condition. Delays in the inside board operators to access Delays in the inside board operators to access. This makes no sense. Delays in the inside board operators to access control board screens timely. Written badly. They must have used Chat Pro GT or whatever it's called. Can inhibit the response in the operating units in the South area. All stuff easily prevented. So here we have some EPA news. I tell you what, let's take a break for a minute here. Let me catch my breath and we'll proceed.
In the professional safety community, communication and planning are just a few keys to your program's success. The question many practitioners have is, where do I start? Dr. Jay Allen, the creator of the Safety FM platform and host of the Rated R Safety Show, has built a global foundation to help you along the way. Go to safetyfm.com and listen to some of the industry's best and most involved professionals, including Blaine Hoffman with the Safety Pro, Sam Goodman with the Hop Nerd, Sheldon Primus with the Safety Consultant, Jim Pozell with Safety Wars, Emily Elrod with Unapologetically Bold, and many others. As individuals, we can do great things, but as a team, we become amazing. Dial into safetyfm.com today and surround yourself with a powerful force of knowledge and support.
OSHA recordables, catastrophic losses, environmental disasters. You want answers? So do I. This is Jim Pozell with Safety Wars.
That's my daddy!
Safety Wars is streaming now.
SafetyFM.com.
Some EPA news today. EPA recognizes 15 organizations for certifying the most buildings as Energy Star in 2022. The U.S. EPA has announced names of 15 organizations that have each earned EPA's Energy Star certifications for more than 150 commercial and multifamily and industrial buildings in 2022. In total, the top certifiers collectively certified more than 3,700 buildings, representing over 800 million square feet of floor space. EPA is highlighting the organizations that are most active certifiers in the recognition of the 30th anniversary of the Energy Star program. So that's what's going on there. EPA report shows a decrease in chemical releases, increase in recycling and recycling and waste management in Region 2 facilities. This is from Region 2 in New York here. The new Region 2 is New York. I always love this. New Jersey, New York. Right, so you understand they're right next to each other in the same region. Then it throws in Puerto Rico and the U.S. Virgin Islands. Costs a hell of a lot more money for the government to regulate those things in those regions when you have to hire people to work in Region 2, and they got to also be prepared to go to Puerto Rico and the U.S. Virgin Islands, right? Because doing anything there, environmental cleanup wise or anything else, is a problem logistically, because now you have to ship everything down by barge or boat or plane. And believe me, it's usually going on by boat if you're using heavy equipment. You're not going to put an abrasive blasting machine inside a plane, right? Can't drive there either. Today, the U.S. EPA releases 2021 Toxics Release Inventory, TRI, national analysis, which shows that environmental releases of chemicals from facilities covered by the program remain below pre-pandemic levels at facilities across the U.S. Additionally, in 2021, facilities managed 89% of their TR chemical waste through preferred practices such as recycling, energy recovery and treatment. In the 4 jurisdictions of Region 2, the report shows long-term reductions in both the waste generated and the waste released from facilities. So the EPA website has a whole bunch of stuff going on here about the states they list. They call them out separately, so maybe something worth seeing. So East Palestine, Ohio train derailment emergency response. This is what's going on. By the numbers, as of March 15th, that is yesterday, the Ides of March, EPA, working alongside with federal, state, and local partners, continues to support the residents impacted by the Norfolk Southern train derailment. 2-day cleanup activities include 3,900 tons of contaminated soil, 6.4 million gallons of liquid wastewater treated, and 616 indoor air screenings. So, a lot of stuff going on, and they're continuing to doing evaluations. And no, I believe there is a lawsuit here also from the government against Norfolk Southern. I'm looking at some of the photos here. So it looks like they're sparging a couple of creeks here. That's what I'm seeing, which is blow air through it. Aeration. Big operation here. And yeah, I'm going through here. I see trucks. I see this and everything. Okay, so it was worth it to go there on the website to check these things out. Now for some financial news. We have Dow Jones Industrial at 32,246 is up slightly. S&P 500 at 3960. NASDAQ is up 1117.28. Russell 2000 is up to 1771. U.S. Treasury notes 10 years sank to 3.5. Bitcoin is trading at almost 25,000, 24,968.28. Crude oil fell again, 68.24. So, people are going berserk here because of the bank bailouts. I mean, it's the only thing I'll say here is if the banks know that someone's going to bail them out, they'll act recklessly. It's human nature. So, on March 10th, the Dow closed at 32,414. Now here we are at today was 32,247. So 114, right? Went to 32,356 on the 10th was the highest. The 32,414, and now they're at 32,247. So basically the same. It's something to just realize here. What this is very volatile. It's up, it's down. A lot of people are in a nervous wreck over this stuff. Got to make plans so you're not a nervous wreck over this stuff. You got to roll with the punches as you can and make reasonable decisions. That's what I've always said. And consult a professional. I'm not a professional. Far from it. Gold is up 1931. So it's come up a lot since March 10th, a week ago. Silver is at 2202, platinum at 995.30, and palladium is up at 1465.50. We covered that, and some COVID-19. No, we'll finish that up last. Pentagon UFO chief intrigued by possible alien dandelion seeds in our solar system. So the character, right? This is from the Epoch Times. It's possible that an extraterrestrial spacecraft is sending mini probes to study the planets of our solar system in a way similar to what human space agencies do. The head of the Pentagon's unidentified anomalous phenomenon research office said in a recent draft report. So what the characteristics of certain unusual, unexplained interstellar objects have prompted researchers to consider the possibility of a parent craft, a mothership, more or less. And that's what's going on there. So here we have, right, we're really big here on this program about reconciliation and everything else. Here we had former Clinton White House and feminist author Naomi Wolf this week issued a formal apology letter to Republicans and conservatives after believing what she described as lies about the January 6, 2021 Capitol Hill breach. Let's get the letter here. So this is right from Dr. Naomi Wolf. There is no way to avoid, quote, here. There is no way to avoid this moment, the formal letter of apology from me to conservatives and those who put America first everywhere. It's tempting to sweep this confrontation with my own gullibility under the rug, to move on without ever acknowledging that I was duped and that as a result I made mistakes in judgment, and these mistakes multiplied by tens of thousands and millions on the part of people just like me, hurt millions of other people like you all in existential ways. But the erasure of personal and public history would be wrong. I owe you a full-throated apology. I believe the farrago of... I've never heard of that word. I believe a farrago of lies, and as a result, these lies and my credulity, right? And the credulity. She was being credulous, right? And the credulity of people similarly situated to me. Many conservatives' reputations are being tarnished on false biases. All right? The proximate cause of this letter of apology is the airing of 2 nights ago of excerpts from tens of thousands of hours of security camera footage. The footage was released by House Speaker Kevin McCarthy on Fox News and to Fox News commentator Tucker Carlson, while fact checkers state that it is misinformation to claim Congresswoman National Nancy Pelosi was in charge of the Capitol Police that day. The fact that the USCP, right, is under the oversight of Congress, according to the United States Capitol Police. All right. This would be the same Congress that convened the January 6th committee, and it goes on and on and on. So I'm not going to give an opinion here. I think I've been very upfront with this, where I was contacted by old political friends to go down there on January 6th, and as I have said, I told them that they were nuts. I knew that there was going to be a problem. I said, stay the hell away from the place. And they stayed the hell away from the place because why? Because there was a problem. Regardless of how it happened and everything else, this happened. Were there some videos of maybe some agent provocateurs or some police, Capitol Hill police, who's escorting people through the Capitol? Yeah, that's on video. How are you going to deny that? What the context is or anything else, I have no idea of that. But to have somebody actually put out a olive branch and apologize on this, I said, you know what? This is probably a good thing to have someone do this. This is what we need more of. People working together. People, people working together. We're all, and I know it sounds cliche and everything else. We're all Americans here, right? In this country, we got to work together. We got to get along and everything else. And that's not only there, all right, with these big political things, the macro, right? The big things. It's also in our lives. What good is this if we have this dialogue where people are just getting canceled? People are getting... Now, this goes either way. Don't think that the conservatives or the independent conservatives like me are so innocent here. Well, they're always complaining about being canceled. Well, guess what? For years, we did it to the other side, too. And this stuff needs to stop here. So, with this, well, we got to get along here. And we have to have some understanding, seeing the other person's point of view. If only just to maybe improve our arguments or our advocacy for our point of view. But maybe it'll change your mind with things. Maybe you'll learn something that you didn't know about. Maybe you could try to persuade the other person. Maybe you can't persuade it, but you gave the other person something to think about. And just acting civilly towards each other. It's all important. Just rest on that. Think about it. We'll be back here tomorrow night, and we'll explore more of this, right? And the other thing is this is part of what Safety Wars is. We're fighting the safety hazards, but there are also other battles out there. And this animosity towards our profession and everything else is not good. We're going to do people a bigger favor in teaching them how to get along and getting along with people, respecting the other person. You don't have to, go out of your way too much to do this. So we'll see you tomorrow night, and take care.
The views and opinions expressed on this podcast are those of the host and its guest and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of the company. Examples of analysis discussed within this podcast are only examples. They should not be utilized in the real world as the only solution available, as they are based only on very limited and dated open source information. Assumptions made within this analysis are not reflective of the position of the company. No part of this podcast may be reproduced, stored in a retrieval system, or transmitted in any form or by any means mechanical, electronic, recording, or otherwise, without prior written permission of the creator of the podcast, Jay Allen.
You got into the safety business because you wanted to protect people, but somewhere along the way, the job started controlling your time, your schedule, your priorities, even your income potential. What if the expertise you've built over the years in the field can give you something more? More freedom, more control, more ownership of your future. I'm Sheldon Primus, the author of 7 Steps to Starting a Profitable Safety Consulting Business and the host of the Safety Consultant Podcast, with more than 350 episodes helping safety professionals become consultants and grow their career. Consulting changed my life. In fact, I'm a full-time RVer, and one consulting contract paid for my home I live in today. Now, I help safety professionals build their own consulting practice through bi-weekly coaching calls, accountability, and personal guidance. But this program isn't for everyone. Start with the Consultant Readiness Audit at sheldon.coach.
What if everything we thought we knew about safety was just interference? From the host of the Rated R Safety Show and the founder of Safety FM comes the complete Signal Transmission Trilogy, now available in one powerful edition. Safety, in my opinion, the book that started the conversation. Safety Mutation, where the boundaries of culture, systems, and belief begin to break. And now, Safety Transmission, the final piece of the signal. For the first time, all 3 books are together in one volume. The Signal Transmission Trilogy, Complete Edition. This isn't just about compliance. It's about consciousness. It's about decoding the way we think, lead, and live, inside and outside the system. Whether you've been following the signal since the beginning or you're just now tuning in, this is the version to own. Search Signal Trilogy on Amazon or visit safetyfm.com to get your copy now.